All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the SSH Maintenance Working Group session at IETF 123. With me, I have our co-chair, Stefan Farrell, and our area director, Deb Cooley, is sitting here in the corner. Would you mind standing up?
Standing up, okay.
Then we applaud.
Okay, everybody stand up.
Yeah. Okay. Who in the room used SSH today? Fantastic. We are together in the right room.
And thanks to Rich and Scott for volunteering to take notes. So there's the note-taking tool for doing that. So if somebody else wants to help, then feel free.
Quick reminder on our note well. In short, we expect everybody to be their most excellent self towards others. My hope is that the IETF meeting is a polite debate club where we challenge each other's ideas and arguments and shy away from fallacies such as ad hominems. There's a lot of links here for you to research at a later moment. I'll repeat, really try to focus on arguments rather than people. And at times, in security protocol design, it seems that people can kind of almost visceral reactions or become upset, but yeah, we will try and work to be nice together today. Thank you. Please scan the QR codes. The QR codes are hanging off the microphones. As you can see, this time around, we got a room that feels a little bit on the small side. So if everybody scans the QR code, then I hope that next time we'll get an appropriately sized room to fit all of us. It's now Wednesday, but maybe some of you have not yet participated in a meeting. You use the on-site tool on your phone to join the queue, and this helps us organize the meeting and make sure that everybody gets a little bit of speaking time. We have a few remote participants, especially a warm welcome to the people on the other side of the planet. Thank you for, well, what time is it? It must be some. Thank you for attending. All right, let's dive into our SSHM specific agenda. Okay, quick update on documents. The NTRU Prime document has left the working group. Quick reminder on a document's progress. People have an idea, they write it down into a draft, upload that into the data tracker. At that point, it is an individual submission. They approach the working group and ask the chairs of the working group, like, hey, can you consider adoption? Working group adoption means that as a group, we commit to jointly work on a certain idea to see if we can make it fly, or maybe jointly conclude that it's not the best idea, all paths are possible. While it is a working group document, the original authors sort of lose some change control, but the working group as a whole gains some change control. So the intent of working group documents is that we collaborate on it, and it's not an author-specific activity. Then at some point, we may feel like, okay, we have crossed all T's and dotted all I's. This is good to get published as RFC. We as working group do not have a unilateral say to publish things as RFC. More review steps are required. So before the document progresses, there's this thing called working group last call, which is an opportunity, say a last opportunity for the working group to provide feedback on whether the document should be published or maybe require some changes, then be published, or should not be published at all. And then the working group sort of loses the change control, and it goes to the wider IETF. So in this case, the NTRU prime document has left the working group. It has successfully passed working group last call in SSHM. And its next steps are an IETF-wide last call and review by the IESG. The IESG is the collective of area directors. Area directors are sort of the managers of the chairs. So this document, I think, is still 2 steps away from RC publication, but yeah, we're getting there. Onwards to the next document, the SSH agent protocol draft. SSH agents have been around for a long time. It's a feature in multiple implementations. My personal perspective is it's very convenient to have SSH agents. And we issued a working group last call for this particular document. But unfortunately, only 2 people have commented on whether this document should be published or not. Now, the 2 people that commented, I applaud them. Thank you for your service. The rest of the room really should consider whether they can contribute to this document's progression. What I'm asking, so the working group last call was supposed to last 2 or 3 weeks. We're now in week 7 or 8. But I really want to see more feedback on what we should do with this document, because the absence of yay or nay is more confusing than some clarity where people express their position. So please give this document a read and share with the mailing list what you think should happen with this document, whether there's any gotchas that you've spotted. It could be as small as spelling errors, or maybe you see something of more severe nature, but your feedback is of paramount importance to produce quality documents that foster an interoperable SSH ecosystem. Onwards to the next. Oh, well, no.
Could we ask you, is there anybody who'd be willing to kind of promise to do a review of that agent document for us that hasn't already? Be nice to get some. Tero, thank you. It'd be great to get 1 or 2 more.
I mean, Florian clearly is available, and Casper, right? Yes.
Great, thank you.
Great.
Yeah, so I mean, if we get 2 or 3 more positive reviews, then that'll make us feel a lot happier about progressing the thing. So. Or
sorry?
That won't make us happy, but okay, great. So
then we have 2 other documents that I think are ready or nearly ready for working group last call. One is Chapter 20 Poly 1305, and the other is the MLChem hybrid CACs document. I think we'll just issue working group last call messages next week or so. One after the other concurrently. What do you think?
One after the other probably makes more sense. And was there kind of an issue that needs discussing about the hybrid CACs thing? Deb, did you have some comment on that? Pardon? Oh no, sorry, it's the hybrid. No, it's the strict. No, it's the strict CACs one. Okay.
No, we're not there.
Yeah. No. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, both of these are widely implemented, so I'm optimistic. There's not a lot of controversy because there's running code, deployed code, but yeah, be on the lookout for an invitation to express support or dissent on whether these documents should progress to RC status. And then finally, Damian Miller submitted a draft called the the strict CACs, which describes a mechanism to work around the Terrapin attack that was disclosed, was it 2 or 3 years ago? I have to apologize to the working group. I should have closed the call for adoption maybe 6 or 7 weeks ago, but somehow this escaped my attention, and then my backup was not working either. But I was reading back in the thread. I was very happy to see there was broad support. I think something like 10 or 12 people commented on the draft. One comment stood out to me. Somebody said, "Hey, is this really SSH2? Shouldn't we call it SSH 2.01 or something?" And that felt like a substantive comment where I would encourage the authors to contemplate the ramification of reffing the number. And I'm not as much as an expert as many in the room are, so maybe it's not possible or not trivial for one reason or another, or maybe it's actually a nice idea. But yeah, that was one comment that stood out to me that I think deserves an answer in one form or another. So I'm not saying version must be reffed, but it would be good to share some thoughts with the mailing list on whether it should be reffed or not, and if that's possible or not.
So that strict hex one is now, the draft name has changed, or the file name has changed, because that's now posted as a working group draft.
All right. Any comments, questions, or concerns, or people are like, "Hey, but what about this document? You're missing something." Okay, I'll take that as A++ approval. Good. Then Damian Miller comments in the chat on strict CACs. Reffing the version will break compat with implementations that do strict matching against SSH-2.0, of which there are several. So it will break deployments, I guess is the argument. Then it might be worth adding a paragraph to the strict CACs internet draft that explains that the version number is not to be changed because of deployment considerations. Thank you, Damien. Tara, why, there's a microphone. I mean, we have a meeting here.
So I think if we are not going to be updating the version number now, that means that we are never going to update the version number ever. And this has happened in quite a lot of protocols. You know, they say, "Oh no, this is too big change. We don't want to update the version number," and then they never, and then they can't. Then the version number is pointless. And I think actually most of the implementations, because I mean, quite a lot of the implementations which come from early days also support 1.99 as a version number, because that was, you know, supporting, you know, SSH1 compatibility and version 2 and that kind of thing. And I think, you know, those implementers who have already implemented or are implementing strict CACs are probably going to be, you know, updated anyway. I don't know, the old ones, I don't know. It's a difficult question, but I mean, I think we should try to keep the version number to be something that is useful in the future. And this is definitely something that affects the, you know, key exchange. So it should be something that really should be, you know, with a version number. But if there's so many implementations that they just check 2.0, then we already lost.
There were a few more comments on the specific topic in the chat. Tom Wiggers says, "You can bump a version number if you're introducing other changes that are going to be incompatible anyway, I guess." To that, I would argue you can also bump the version number without any other changes, just for the purpose of bumping the version number to avoid that being a still field. Alicia Cario says it's ossification, what we got in TLS client hello.version. Damien is in the queue. Yep.
Yeah, I guess I'm aware. I can't remember what the name of it was, but I am aware of a minor, like a not very widely used SSH implementation that does check the full version number. At least OpenSSH and I think PuTTY don't check the minor version. It would be interesting to see whether, you know, what the prevalence of actually what the actual impact of it would be. I guess, yeah, I don't want it to be like HTTP, you know, the HTTP user agent field where you just kind of append stuff into it.
Yeah. This is the beauty of internet engineering. We have so many great and terrible examples to pull inspiration from. Is there maybe somebody in the working group that would find it interesting to do a little bit of research on the feasibility of bumping a version number? So that now the discussion becomes unrelated to strict CACs, but just the question of how many permutations would cease to work if the version number is incremented by 100th. Well, if you know, there's a prospective PhD student or an interested party there's an opportunity here to help the working group. Tero.
Okay. I think one of the things is it's really about the server implementations. Because I mean, the clients can always, you know, have this kind of knob saying, okay, fall back to, you know, 2.0 if the other one doesn't support or have a, you know, configuration option. With the servers, if you send 2.1 and the client doesn't always just disconnects, then you have a problem. So that's actually the question that, you know, yeah, it's one of the options would be actually say that server would say 2.0 and client would say 2.1. And then if the other one actually disconnects because he doesn't understand 2.1, he doesn't understand strict CACs either, which means that then you have to do optional selection that do you actually want to connect because it doesn't support strict CACs. Of course, it does if it doesn't support any of the features that cause the strict CACs to be a problem. Then you can again in a client select fall back to 2.0 version, which doesn't support strict CACs, and disable all the options that would be broken by it.
So this is Deb Cooley without a hat on.
We can see that.
Can you? Yeah, that's awesome, right? So what I would say is if you're, right now, everybody already implements strict CACs, right? Oh, the echo in here is horrible. Everybody already does strict CACs, so there's no point in changing the version number for this. But when you move to something that's going to be, if you do publish something that's going to be a breaking change, then you change the version number so you can tell, right? But for this particular thing, because it's already implemented and it's already out there, I wouldn't change the version number now. But again, that's just my own personal opinion.
Thank you. Damien?
I posted this in the chat, but a proposal, I'd propose we keep strict CACs as it is because it is a purely optional and backwards compatible feature. And we continue with that without bumping the version number, but we do a separate draft, in the not too distant future where we bring together strict CACs, extinfo, any other protocol tweaks that we think belong in a modern SSH implementation, and we say that is SSH 2.1, and they should be completely backwards compatible, but maybe we could simplify the signaling requirements if we have a minor protocol bump. So it's actually, it could pay for itself in terms of things that have to get signaled in the initial key exchange.
So I see a bunch of people in the room nodding at that proposal. I guess the exact timing of when to do that might be worth a bit of thought, but if somebody wanted to get a draft like that on the road, then I guess it could be adopted, and we could decide when to eventually try and pop it out later. So you don't need to decide the timing today, but it seems like an idea that people are positive towards. Does anybody think that's a bad idea in the room or online?
Let me summarize it once more. Yeah, but then it's so many words in the poll. Let me first summarize it. Deb argues version number doesn't need to be revved because it's already a deployed solution that somehow works. Damien says, let's make a new internet draft separate from the strict CACs draft, and the new internet draft defines SSH 2.1, which mandates strict CACs and some other features that we maybe come up with. And this essentially is a separation of concerns approach. Are people comfortable with this approach? You want to do the poll? Okay, I love it.
If it's not controversial, we don't need to do a poll. You want to do a poll? You going to? Oh, he's doing a poll.
Should we ref the version or not?
Well, no. The problem with these polls is the wording is always wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
Good idea, bad idea.
Leave version as is in strict CACs.
Yeah. Okay, we have a poll.
Is this a fair question or is it leading?
It's too late.
Oh, it's
But yeah, that's fine. That's fine, I'm sure.
So there's this quiz game, Kahoot, and it has a really tense music that goes along with it when you wait for the poll to close. And I feel that there should be like a...
Okay, that seems stable. So just for the record then, it's 13 yes, 2 no, and 3 no opinion. If anybody who polled no would like to say why, that would be useful, but you don't have to. Darrow is going to the mic.
Yeah, I said no, and I think because, I mean, if this is a big enough change that I think we should be a version number bump, it's just mostly, these kind of things. And as I said, implemented versions can still, do all kind of things for backward compatibility,
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
So, yeah, okay. Modulo confirmation of after the minutes of the meeting are sent out and so on. It looks like people seem happy with that plan to stick with the version as is and then do another draft then that will bump the version for some collection of features that we then document. And does anybody feel inspired to volunteer to write that bump the version draft? Not today?
Not today, okay. I propose we, we're not yet done. Dimitri says, what I'm concerned with is the server declaring 2.0 and supporting strict CACs, and the client declaring 2.1, and the connection should be able to use strict CACs. Yeah. I really think we need some data from the field, how changes in the version number impact compatibility across multiple implementations. For me, it is not possible to gauge the size of the problem without a little bit more data on existing deployed software behavior. That's a good one, yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Then we have some drafts that relate to what we frame as existing deployments. This is a little bit in contrast with other drafts that are more forward-looking or use modern ciphers. So for the sake of organizing this particular meeting, we made this almost arbitrary distinction. And I guess we can start with some presentation.
So we have a presentation on this. We only have a presentation on the last one, right?
Yes.
So if we could go to the first two, that's probably going to be quick, and then get to the last one for the presentation, maybe.
All right. Damien, you want to share some words on SSH certificates and SSH AS GCM?
I shared many words at the last IETF on certificates. I guess happy to answer questions, but the draft's basically unchanged. I think since then, I do have to push may have to remember to push some minor fixes. ASGCM is basically so the history of ASGCM in SSH was that after the original working, this is my recollection, after the original SSH working group wound up, there was a draft by someone from the NSA adding SSH GCM to the SSH protocol. There was some feedback by several people, including myself at the time, that the negotiation method for ASGCM in SSH was bad. And this is shoehorning and authenticated encryption into a protocol that only previously knew about separately negotiated confidentiality and integrity algorithms. And the mechanism that they chose broke that negotiation if there was anything other than AES-GCM present. OpenSSH did a different approach for the negotiation, but the actual packet protocol as defined by that RFC is unchanged. So it's just a fixed negotiation mechanism. And to my knowledge, every public SSH implementation or nearly every public SSH implementation that supports ASGCM uses this way of doing it for that reason. So this draft is really just documenting that negotiation mechanism and punting all of the actual specification of ASGCM in SSH back to the original NSA draft, RFC.
So on those two drafts, would I be right, Damien, in assuming that you plan to ask us to adopt them and process them in the nearish future?
I didn't want to overload the working group.
Yeah, we can pick when to do it, but that's roughly the plan.
Yeah. Look, I would like to see these both standardized. I think the GCM one I imagine will be less challenging to work through. Certificates, I think, just in terms of size of the draft and complexity of the certificates is more challenging.
Okay, so people should expect at some point that we'll do adoption calls for those two and process them as normal. Any other comments on the CERT or AS drafts? If people have read them already, or don't see anything in the room. Okay, and I think we have a presentation on the third one.
All right, I'd like to invite Florian.
Do you know how to add the slides clicker?
I do now, yeah.
I was wondering how that worked.
Look, so in the
You pass slide control to
participants,
this. Okay.
you pass it to the bot, you click yes.
Can you next slide me? Otherwise, I'll picture the wrong that thing.
All right.
Okay.
Florian Obser will share a little bit about file transfers in SSH.
Yes, did not say next slide, please.
Next slide, please.
Yeah, so I'm presenting this on behalf of my co-editors, Clemens and Job, who sits over there. So this is the well, SFTP draft, and this has been around for 21 years. So like good old whiskey, it's very good. This specific one, so we forked from this 21-year-old draft, and that one specifies SFTP version 3, which, as far as we can work out, is the common denominator between all the things that are out there. And particularly, it's the one. Sorry. Oh, yeah. It's very loud here, but I think it's just the echo.
Yeah, the audio acoustics are not super good.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry. So take it from the top. I think we have the time. So this draft is about SFTP. We forked a 21-year-old version, which specifies SFTP version 3, which, as far as we know, is the most common denominator between all the implementations out there. So it's the only one that OpenSSH implements. There were new version of that old draft that other implementations implement, but since OpenSSH only implements that one, all the other implementations need to do version negotiation, which is part of SFTP. Next slide, please. So here are the things that we did to the draft. Since it was so old, it did not have any requirements language in there. It had things like the server will do this and that, and we replaced this with the server must do this and that. After all, we are specifying a protocol here, so might as well say what the thing needs to do, must do, sorry. And since we were reading this thing with fresh eyes, we did a bunch of editorial changes to make the text flow better. And we updated a few RFC references. So, for example, the draft says you can also run SFTP over TLS as a transport mechanism, and it spelled out TLS at 1.0, and well, we at 1.3 these days. Next slide, please. While we went through there, we identified 3 things where we wanted a working group input on what we should do about this. The protocol specifies status codes and error codes, and it specifies 2 no connection and connection lost that it specifically specifies as this must not be on wire, which is super weird. Well, why does it even specify this? So the idea is it specifies how a client could be implemented. And my proposal would be that we just drop them. However, the status codes, they're numbered, and if we remove them, we remove them from the middle. And this might be confusing, so maybe we should just leave them in and say, well, don't use them. Way back when, like 2 decades ago, when OpenSSH implemented this, it made the mistake of swapping the arguments of the symlink command. And I've seen clients that work around this. Like, so OpenSSH just on both sides, it uses the wrong symlink argument order. Basically, with the symlink, it says source and target, and this one is the other way around. And well, it was discovered too late, so it could not be fixed in code because it was just deployed too widely. And I have seen implementations that negotiate version 3 and then try to work out, oh, are we talking to OpenSSH? And if yes, then swap the arguments again. So I was wondering if we can just fix that historic mistake in the draft and say, just swap the arguments there. From discussions about other things on the mailing list about this draft, I suspect the answer is going to be no, and we should just spell out there was this historic mistake and leave it in as is. And the last thing, SFTP has an extension mechanism the same way as SSH, where you have option add vendor domain. Or it points out in the future there could be an IANA registry where you have options that are just a string. And Damien had already proposed on the mailing list that we could go that way and have an IANA registry. And I was wondering procedurally, would it make sense to open that registry in this draft? And it would be a bit weird because the registry would be empty. But then on the other hand, currently the draft says in the future there might be an IANA registry. So if we then write another draft that actually wants to use that registry, we need to open it there. And I don't know in which way this would be weird. Next slide. So the question is the working group interested in working on this? That's all I have. Thank you.
Oh, don't go away. Taro, you're in the queue, I hope? Okay, good.
All right, so Tero Kivinen. So one of the things I think we should have taken the latest version, the draft 13, which is the version 6 of the SFTP, because that's also, I would say it's implemented widely on Windows environments. I think most of the implementation on Windows, I would assume probably all the servers in Windows support that. And if we are going to be, you're saying, oh, this is the baseline, everybody implements this, but that would indicate that we will still need to be also standardized to version 6, because that's what, or are you planning to say that, okay, only version 3 is allowed forever? And I don't want to have that bad feature. I think we need to have features that are also supports other type of file systems than Unix and Linux. The things that were added there in version 4, 5, and 6 are mostly for this kind of support for file attributes that are not supported by Linux. Actually, some of those file attributes are something that are actually supported also in Unix, but which wasn't included in the beginning. And also, for example, this symlink stuff, they noticed that also in version 4, which means that I think they actually, or was 5, I don't remember, they added the new FXP link, which does both symlink and hard linking and has a different number, so that it can be unique. So you can use that safely because you know that it always uses the arguments in different order. So I would think it would be better to do so that we actually take the version 13 as a baseline and then add a big annex there saying that if you are doing version 3, these features are not supported. Don't use those. And I don't think we actually want to support anything. We could also do, one of the problems is that do we actually want to support version 4 and 5? And my guess is that I did find some version that was saying that it supported version 5 and some of the version 6 features, but I didn't really find any version that would only say that, oh, we only support version 4 or version 5. It was always either 6 or 3. Those were the two versions that I found. So I think we should say that we have a version 6, which is the most complete version, and then we have an annex saying that this is if you want to be backward compatible with OpenSSH as written before you are using version 3 and don't use these features, because I think that would be quite easy for I actually say all of the version 6 implementations already does that. They already, as I said, they have to implement version 3 version that they have to do all kind of magic tricks to detect it's an OpenSSH anyway, to, for example, the link command and so on. And so it shouldn't be affecting actually any of the implementations. If we are just defining version 3, that actually will affect implementations who are already supporting version 6.
Damien, you want to comment specifically towards Tero, or?
I think what I was going to say would more or less address what he said anyway. So, look, I think it's worth documenting version 3, irrespective of whether we go on to document a later version of the FileXfer drafts, just because version 3 is so widely implemented. I disagree that the predominant version available on Windows is not 3. Windows, the default Windows SSH implementation now is derived from OpenSSH, and I believe it ships the unmodified SFTP server, which is the draft that we're talking about here. So I think it is the lowest common denominator. I completely agree that it is missing some features, but I think it's worth documenting as a baseline because it's out there. It's not going to go away anytime soon, and finding a path to get those extra features, I think, probably starts with documenting what we have and using that to assess the gaps.
I had a question for Damien. So you said that the most common version in Windows is OpenSSH based. What is the name of that? Because I didn't find that in the matrix. When I was checking out the SSH versions, I didn't find any of that in our.
I don't think it's listed there. I think it's just I think it was called Win32 OpenSSH. I think the project's got a different name on GitHub now, but it's the SSH client and server that just is included as part of Windows.
Is it client or server?
Both.
Okay. Because when I was going through all of these, implementations, I didn't, I think almost all of the Windows versions were having version 6 or all of that I had to actually detect because it was really hard sometimes to find which they are. For example, the client that I'm using, it has a version 6 default, and then you have an version 4, 3, or actually it has version 3 to 6 auto negotiation as a default, and then there is a forced version 3 in case the other end doesn't support version negotiation.
My turn, just as individual contributor.
You might just want to say that you're a co-author on this because it wasn't entirely obvious from the slide.
Yeah. So, okay, let's start there. I heard from some SSH implementers so I asked around hey, what is a list of concepts or things that should maybe be documented or revived, or what is our to-do list as working group? And one of the things that popped up was SFTP. So I dug into that, what exists, and I discovered this 21-year-old draft and realized that it predates the transition from Internet Society to the IETF Trust. So my role so far has been to convert the plain ASCII text into modern XML to RFC and clear copyright issues by gaining explicit permission from the original authors that they share the rights with the IETF Trust. So my contribution specifically is to enable this working group to work on it. Whether the project goes somewhere or not is a distinct point. But I figured, in order to have a meaningful discussion, do we want to publish this as an RFC? It should be possible. In the first place, it should become possible to publish it as an RFC. So that's why my name is on this draft. Florian was kind enough to do some technical work on the draft. I have done bureaucratic work. Now, we are at the IETF, which exists to help create interoperable open standards. And in this sense, I think in an alternate universe, maybe SFTP version 3 would have gotten published as RFC 19 years ago, and then maybe a few years later, version 6 would have been published as extended SFTP, and we would have had multiple RFCs, one the draft we are currently discussing, and a separate RFC that adds features like character set encoding and file names and so on. Now, we are much later on the timeline, but we can still take that approach. In my mind, there is nothing wrong with publishing version 3 as a baseline specification, as something that is deployed and used in the wild. And additionally, publishing a specification that outlines the version 6 features. It's not one or the other, in my mind.
Or we could have one document that did both. I'm not saying we should, we could.
Well, you're in principle absolutely right, but I am reminded of the NFS version 4 RFC, which is, I don't know, 6,000 pages. So I think maybe there's opportunity to merge things. I have not done a full analysis of that, but it would be good to see if, for instance, there are benefits to readability to having more concise documents and splitting things up. And that decision is not yet made. We, as working group, get to decide what path we want to follow. Do we want a big document? Do we want multiple documents? There's room for multiple volunteers to work on this. And I think this initiative really is an attempt to start somewhere because SFTP, as it stands, is not properly specified as an RFC. So that's a little bit where I'm coming from. And I would invite others to speak up as well on what they envision would be a good follow-up path. So, Rich, please.
I have a question first, mainly to anyone who knows the version 6. Is it a strict superset? I mean, could you actually, is it feasible to have 2 documents? Because
So this is a really good question.
I mean, and yet actually on the one hand, if we have 2 documents, we don't even care about what the answer to that is. I think the big motivation to have a version 3 doc and a version 6 doc is that the working group energy to document version 3 is probably much greater than the working group energy to document version 6. And that might be because we're all Unix, Linux, OpenSSH heads rather than Windows people. But I think, so be it. If that's what the working group energy is, that's where the working group energy is, then that's what we should work on. So I'm in favor of 2 docs and that, a 3 and a 6, and there's no reason that they have to be tied together. The 6 could say, and here's the changes we made to 3, and this is what the version 6 stuff is, and people will go, oh, this has got lots of interesting features, let's do it. It's already widely deployed on Windows, if in fact it is. So
I have a suspicion that I put a lot of work into this draft, and probably not a lot of people have already read it. So when I went through that 21-year-old draft, what I found was pretty good. This was not a terrible draft, and then there are like 13 versions more that actually fixed this up. This version 2 draft was pretty good. So I changed a bit of language, but there was nothing that needed fixing. So that's why I was cautiously optimistic that we get this through quickly as a base document. And then slap, if someone wants to work on V6, you can slap it on top. That's my take.
Yes, the version 6 is, I think it's mostly superset of the, version 3. I think the only difference is really the symlink and link type of things, which is, which was broken in version 3 and they had to fix it, and OpenSSH fixed it in differently way, and, everybody else either, did some magic or did something, I don't know. And version 6 fixed it by making a new link command and giving a new number. But it's a superset of, version 3. Version 6 version let's say draft version 13 has also quite a lot of, changes. For example, one of the things, it changed the ID to be request ID, which makes it much more clear what the ID is. And that's actually something that I think we should be doing anyway. If we are even if we are taking version 3, we should check out, the diffs between 13 and draft version 13 and draft version 2, and check out what changes there are, what clarifications they added for version 3 related stuff, because they added stuff that say, okay, you need to do this and this, and you need to do, and it actually saying this must be done, this must be done. They did that actually quite a lot of the last 5 years that they were working on the draft. I mean, version 2 of the draft was 2001 and version 13 was 2006. So there's 5 years of, work. People were reading the document and saying, this is not clear, we need to clarify this and this, that kind of things. So that's, I think, I hate that we actually lose that kind of information. And if we are going to making version 6 as a separate document. We want to make it's a similar type of baseline. So I would like to have them like same type of, text and so on. They are using, so instead of other one using uint ID, the other one using uint request ID, and for example, also the error codes and that kind of things are, I think the old one uses has a define in the beginning of, all the, numbers because it was, okay, you can cut and paste it in Linux, the C code, but there is no point of having that kind of things. I think they removed that in one of the comments. And in, I think it was 9 or 10 or something like that, there is a section 12, which says that these are the changes between the protocols. And it's like it's just, telling, okay, we added this, we added that, and we removed this, and, that kind of thing. So it's just, but it actually, the latest one, the Legend 13, it just says, use the diff feature to find the features. But so you have to go a little bit back to find the list of changes. So I did check the diffs from 2 to the 13 myself, and there is quite a lot of changes, but there's also very easy to see which are like adding file attributes, new file attributes, adding new extensions, and of course those don't need to be incorporated in the version 3 document, but those like changing their ID and so on would be useful.
So while you're there, Tero, so I think your initial idea was to start with draft 13.
Yes.
A couple of other people seem to be saying start with draft 2 and then have a separate document for documents v6, which would inherit all the good bits of draft 13.
Yeah. So
my question for you is: does that sound like a crazy plan to you, or do you see major?
No. So I see two versions, two ways of doing this. My preferred way would to get the version one SFTP version, which would document version 6, and then have an annex saying these are the features that are not supported for version 3. Don't implement them if you want, or don't use them if you want to use a version 3. The other that would be a preferred version, but it seems to be that most of the people here doesn't want it. Then the other one, it would be having a version 3 documented in a way that would be almost same that the version 13 is, meaning that just remove all the features that are added in version 3, but make sure that the text changes that are there, because as I said, they added some text there, would be that, and then we would have immediately start another document that would actually say, okay, this is the extension for version 6, how to extend version 3 to version 6. But I would actually like to have that one documented very quickly, preferably actually at the same time, because one of the things that they might be actually interlocks. If we find some issues in version 3 doc text and we need to modify it, it might actually, or when we are documenting version 6, we notice that, oh, this was actually wrong in version 6 third version, it might be actually easier to do it at the same time.
Right. But okay, so just okay, so you're
both
saying
of them are acceptable for me.
Okay.
What is not acceptable for me, only document version 3 and forget for version 6.
Understood.
Yeah, to respond specifically to your last comment, if we compare with the RPKI to router protocols, there's version 0 and version 1, and version 2 is in the making. Version 1 did not deprecate version 0. In the RPKI context, it really was, okay, version 1 adds some cool features. You want to use those features, do version 1. If you're okay without those features, version 0 is still perfectly fine. And I envision a similar strategy applies here. It's not either or, they coexist.
Yes, I think the version 3 would not be obsoleted, meaning that both version 3 and version 6 would be alive for a long time. At one point in 20 years' time, you might come back and say that, okay, now everybody supports version 6, we can actually forget the version 3. And with the final, printer somewhere that actually using version 3 just, broke its, power supply last year, so we can now get rid of it. But I actually don't see that actually ever happening, because we never ever know when the last device using, old SSH1 dies.
Yeah. And in all of this, we should be patient and kind with ourselves, because we're really looking at legacy documents that very much predate all my involvement in the IETF. So it's like, yeah, when Let's see what we can make out of this spaghetti. Then I had a question for consideration for you. If we have confusion around the symlink, whether it's source destination or destination source, would it make sense to open an IANA registry, have an extension, properly ordered symlink command?
I suppose so. I also have, I did see a vendor extension in OpenSSH that implements what Terry was talking about, the link, which can also do hard links. So the OpenSSH SFTP can do hard links. I have not looked how it does this, but it sounded like exactly like that. So yes, we could do that.
Yeah, that might be a way out of that discrepancy.
I have not looked what clients are actually doing. Like when they negotiate v3 and figure out, oh, this is OpenSSH, I saw that what they're doing is, if we want to do a symlink command, then we need to do magic. But I don't know if the code ever reaches that, or if it would go, oh, yeah, I also have the hard link feature.
Okay.
So just to clarify, again, this is Deb Cooley without a hat on. Tiro talks about version 3, version 6, and then he talks about 13. Is it like draft 13?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so that's the actual version number of the draft that you're pulling from. Okay, so that's confusing.
So we have draft.
Yeah, but we're really talking about version 3 and version 6, right?
That's the on-wire version, yes.
Okay. Okay. So 2 drafts sounds reasonable, right? That way you do one and it's complete, and then you do the other one and it probably uses pieces of this, but then is also complete, right? That might be with a hat on. Sorry. No, Tiro disagrees with me. That's fine.
So most of the stuff in version 6, meaning that draft 13, is actually same that this version 3. So for example, I think most of the how to actually read the files. So the version 6 would be saying do everything that is done in version 3 plus these extensions. So it's mostly building on the previous one. It has some other features like other things that are changing. There's like file names are going to be UTF-8 instead of just unspecified, binary object. Because I mean, there is, if you have if you ever have to transfer files between, machines that don't support the same files, file system type of things, you have to specify something.
You just turned around how you wanted to do this. So previously you said, I want to document all these things is what V6 does. And oh, by the way, here's an appendix that tells you, forget all of this if you want to do V3. And now just on the microphone you said, oh, this is what you need in V3 and we give you all these extra
so
things.
As I tell, I had 2 options. And it seems to be I'm losing the first one, which would be that document the version 6 and version 3 in the appendix. And the other option I have is that, okay, we specify one document for version 3, one document for version 6, and the version 6 would be probably the more like this kind of thing, extension to version 3, because most of the stuff that is there in version 3 is already supported by version 6. And I don't think we actually need to copy how to read the file or how to, delete the file, because that operation is exactly the same in both versions.
So you would prefer an appendix?
I would prefer an appendix because that would be one document that specifies the whole SFTP. And if new person comes in and start implementing SFTP, he would take that one, and then he would have to decide, okay, is the version 3 backward compatibly important for us or not? If it would be 2 different documents, he would probably take the first one which comes up with an SFTP version 3, start implementing that, and then notice that I'm talking to these Windows machines, and now I can't actually copy all of my files because the file system file names are different.
Okay. So while I have my hat on, I will say that I don't care which way you do it, as long as it's clear to an implementer, right? So you can do it in 2 documents, you can do it in 1 document, I don't care, as long as when I read it as a Luddite, right? As not a person that does implementation, as long as it's clear about what you would do to meet both requirements, right? So I'm happy to take this to the list and talk about it and see which way looks to be the best. Obviously, you need to document both. Seems to me that you need to document both now that I understand where the 13 comes from. But I don't, doesn't matter to me as your AD, whether you do it in one document or two documents.
So, should I try summarize?
Yes, please. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to try and summarize that. So we have some 20-year-old documents that we want to resurrect. I think one thing that wasn't mentioned, but maybe not everybody is aware, I think that the author set changed back then as well between the different versions. So it's so I think the work that Joe did to get the trust issues handled is good. We don't seem to have anybody interested in documenting a version 4 or 5. We're some intermediate things, so we're going to forget those. Version 3 and version 6, we want to document. That could be done in one document or in two. In the room today, I think I'm sensing that more people think it's more feasible or maybe easier done as 2 documents. We have an author set for the version 3 one today. We'll need to try and arm twist somebody to produce a version 6 document if it's a separate document. And that, I think, is my summary. Does anybody want to correct me for something I inevitably got wrong?
No correction. I will look into the copyrights in relation to version 13 of the draft, aka version 6 of the protocol, and see if I can clear those hurdles so that if somebody wants to pick up the work, it will be more easy. But I would also be interested to hear if anybody in the room is interested in helping version 6 of the protocol be specified and ratified as RFC. Is there a volunteer? Not at this
Everybody's looking at you, Taro.
time. Yeah, that is.
You don't have to volunteer now. Okay? We don't necessarily need to decide now, but I think the
I was just
plan is
curious,
that
you know.
if somebody wants to volunteer, I mean, I guess this could be a nice opportunity for somebody to do their first RFC because you're taking a bunch of text and kind of just moving it forwards. So if somebody feels the love for that or wants to step into writing RFCs that way, might be an easy way to do it.
All right, we as chairs will look into if we can do some preparation work for version 6, and then maybe try and make this an attractive package for a newcomer to help standardize.
Okay, but so otherwise, I think that's if nobody has a problem with the summary I offered there, and hopefully the note takers more or less got it, then I think we have a plan to go forward.
I have a procedural question.
Sure.
So I'd like 2 documents to begin with, right? And then the suggestion was we leave both documents alive. Tara was suggesting, oh, maybe we can have a new document. So say we publish V3 as an RFC. In parallel, someone starts to work on V6, and then it turns out, actually, yes, having a joint document, we can make this readable. We could immediately do a BIS of the old one, right? We don't need to wait like half a year or something like that. We could do it, right?
Yeah. Everything is possible.
Okay.
So,
okay.
All right, thank you, Florian.
Thank you. Okay, we have a plan. Rich?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to Joe for doing the IP clearance, because that's like nasty, not fun stuff, having gone through it a few times. So thank you.
It was a lot of fun. At first, I emailed the entirely wrong person who had the same name and was living in the same country. I'm like, what are the chances? And that person was also in IT, and it's like, yeah, I like SSH, but I'm not that person. Yeah. All right. What is next in our
Other booklet of drafts.
Yeah. How do I?
We got like 25.
We go back to the chair slides.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to
Sure.
share some words?
So these are the other set of drafts that we have that seem relevant. If I've missed something from this list, now would be a good time to say that. I think they fit, these sets more or less fit into a couple of groups. One is the top one there, which is using SSH signatures for other things. Another one is the draft Becker, which I don't think is something that would come to the working group. It just happens to be a relevant thing, but that'll probably go to the independent stream, as the NSA people like to do with their profiles these days. So that problem is probably not for the working group to consider, but worth knowing about if you're interested. And then there's the Peter Gutman one on pre-auth, which I haven't read, so I'm not going to comment on it otherwise. And then we have a bunch of Cypher ones, mostly post-quantum fun. So unless somebody, I think that the thing to talk about today might be, how do we want to handle this bucket of post-quantum proposals? And so that includes, pure ML-Chem, pure ML-DSA, composite signatures, MacAleese, Sphinx Plus, Frodo-Chem. So we have these, we have all these proposals. It's unclear to me who wants to implement them. I think for all of them, they're kind of credible, sound proposals. And some of them have some people who would like to implement them, and perhaps some people who would absolutely not like to implement them. So that gives us a kind of a bit of a challenge as to how to handle all these. Do we want to, process them by calling for adoption? Do we want to just kind of leave them there as internet drafts, which can get the relevant code points, so that people can do their work? And the question is, what do people think about this bucket of things that will be less widely used but post-quantum fun?
So to clarify, these internet drafts, all of them can get code points, which will help with deployment, some deployment in some limited form. So there is no blocker for code points. The question really is, what is it we as working group want to do with documents that at this point in time do not appear to be widely deployed or widely implemented? I think Quinn, and then Damien.
Quinn Dang at NIST. For myself, I don't want to predict the future, and I think it would not be. It would be nice if the working group decided to, whoever proposed for the working group to adopt, then we would have to go over the normal process to see if we have consensus for adoption of such proposal. But that I would leave to the draft author to decide if they want to propose that to the working group or not, and then we can go from there. I don't know for sure, if they will be widely deployed later in the future or not. So that's the future. But I can see many of them, if got adopted, that would become significantly used.
Yeah. So I think a challenge with the pure approach is that a number of working group participants have indicated, like, we will only do hybrids because reasons. And yeah, this is feedback that we should not take lightly. There sounds technical arguments in favor of hybrids, I suppose. So this is why a discussion about what is it we do with the pure approaches is important.
Okay, Damien?
Yeah, I guess that not a me. Just before I get to the post quantum stuff, the SSH sig format draft, I think, is the only one here that has significant public adoption. It's a signature format that's supported by Git, the Git version control system, and a number of tools that use it. So you can, for example, you can use SSH signatures to sign stuff that gets uploaded to GitHub, and GitHub understands the signatures and can process them. It is a little bit outside the SSH protocol itself, though.
Exactly. Yeah. So Yeah, so my only issue with that one was I wasn't clear if it actually might require a recharter or something, which would be unfortunate, but we can look
Yeah.
into that. Yeah.
So I guess that's my take on it. I like it, but I'm super biased. With regards to the post-quantum stuff, I've probably reached a point of post-quantum exhaustion to some degree, but I think there's consensus within OpenSSH is we're probably not going to implement another key exchange unless there's unless it at least is a different underlying math problem, and or like there's some standards action that justifies it. For example, if a European government required, say, Photochem, which is a possibility, right? Or we go with Macaleese or HQC because they have different math problems underneath them. I recognize that there are some people who do want non-hybrid algorithms, but they're not something that we're speaking for OpenSSH, not something that we're interested in at this stage. I think and come back to us in a few years.
Scott?
Scott Fleur, Cisco Systems. Clarifying question. You said that for chems, it is rather the working group was rather clear that they're not interested only in hybrid. How about public key signatures? Is there a similar assumption in the working group that any signature format would also need to be hybrid?
Don't know. I don't know. Or is there?
For example, the SSH Sphinx method.
Yeah, so I don't know the answer to it. I unfortunately can't help by clarifying. But it's a good question to ask. Great.
Yeah, Quinn Dang again, to continue the previous comments I made. Yeah, it was clear to me that most people prefer the hybrid options, but it was not the case that in my reading that people actually said no to poor options. And right now, it looks like LAM's TOS have adopted poor options or going to adopt more. So I don't think it's a strong no to poor options here. Yeah. So it would be the good thing to judge each proposal by itself and let the working group to make a call on that.
So I think that makes a lot of sense, and it certainly makes a lot of sense for TLS, for example. In our case, we're chartered to document things that are out there, more widely deployed, and then if we succeed in doing that, move on to more ambitious and newer things. So there's a little bit of a conflict between some of these proposals and what the working group was set up to do first. I'm not saying what the right answer is, but there is that tension here that doesn't exist in, for example, TLS.
In that case, then that is a charter issue. It's not, the charter is not legally restricted forever. It's all about what the good works we do to support the community. That's the main goal.
Phrased differently, it might mean, let's say 2 years from now, we recharter and then pick up this type of work. Yeah, I guess it's not necessarily a question, are we going to do this never, but more, are we going to do this now or 2 or 3 years from now? So, yeah.
So let me ask, So let me ask a clarifying question. When you say signatures in SSH, is this authentication?
Yeah.
And is it authentication only?
Yeah.
Yeah? So then there's no pressure time-wise to deploy a signature. You can wait. I mean, you can, like, so the problem is our charter is very tight in terms of deployments and implementations have to be in existence. But in the case of authentication, you can wait until much, much later to deploy this, right? So I'm trying to be careful with where my hat is on or off. So with my hat on, because the charter is very tight and requires deployments, that I think we want to be, we need to be careful, right? Or we need to be specific. So in the case of signatures and SSH, if it's only authentication, you can afford to wait, right? And then you can see where the space ends up and then deploy later. If you want something in your hip pocket, like for when the time comes, then you might want a signature approved. It's always been a question in my mind, and this is hat off, just a personal opinion, of why you would want a hybrid signature for authentication. Like, I don't understand why you would do that. So, since you can wait and see where the space ends up, right, before you actually do the deployment. My only question with my hat back on, sorry, it's confusing, is that if you want something in the wings ready to go, then you would want to do it now. All of these things can get code points today because of the way we've set it up. So it's not like you can't use it or test it because the code point option is there. But I think from a working group point of view, I think we can afford to wait. Oh, and maybe I'll get corrected.
Yeah.
I am only talking about the algorithm documents, and I'm specifically talking about the signature documents, and not the chems. So not the SSH SIG format, not Gutman's, whatever the hell he's doing there, sorry. And not whatever that composite signature, well, the composite signature thing is a signature, right? So if you need PhotoChem because the Europeans want PhotoChem, then you're gonna do it, right? So again, you can get a code point today for PhotoChem and McLeese if you want it. Does that help?
On the subject of waiting, there are a bunch of governments and things that have put in deadlines by like 2030. And if we're only starting to look at how to do things for authentication by then people might need to have moved before that, especially when putting things into things that might be less easy. There might be people, I don't know if this is true for SSH, but this is true in general, that there are environments in which people deploy keys that will need to do authentication for the next couple of years. And they are clamoring to have signature algorithms at this moment. So that I wanted to put that forward as something to consider. Also, I think the charter says that selecting new algorithms is in scope. So, I mean, I don't want to do charter lawyering, but there is some of that in here.
Yeah, and so, for example, we have the hybrid ML-Chem hybrid is a new thing and is in scope and is being progressed because that's something that people do want now.
But it's actually the initial reason why I went in the queue. I think that there is probably worth pulling out something like Composite 6 that has like a slightly more protocol engineering vibe to it, because we need to talk about how to combine things, what security properties we get from combining things, versus pure algorithms like MLDSA, where it might be more of a case where it's just take MLDSA, this is a code point, you're done.
Okay. Damien?
I kept joining the queue and leaving because people were saying what I was going to say. But I think Tom, I think, made a point that I admit to not having considered before, that we do need an answer for people to be standards compliant when the standards fall. And I know that some Australian government agencies are mooting 2030 as a date for PQ requirements as well. So I guess with regards to, I also agree that we don't have to rush with the signature format to the same extent that we have to rush for chems. And some some signature algorithms and some chems are I think less scary in a non-hybrid context than others. So, for example, Macalise is about as old as I am, and it's been studied across decades and has very good, appears to have very good security margins. Sphinx seems to have a pedigree that's close as well. I mean, there may be more appetite for those in a non-hybrid context than something which is like as new as the module lattice based systems.
Okay, Michael.
So I note that you can actually for MLChem and MLDSA there are code points. There are for MLChem and MLDSA there are code points. So you can get code points with drafts. That helps. Not really a problem for this group, but it creates an externality, a problem in that drafts are only supposed to be referred to as works in progress. And so if you're writing regulations or, in Europe or other things, you have a perpetual work in progress that you're referring to. It's not ideal, but it works for the development. I get that.
Thank you. Good.
Wundang again. I have a really unrelated question regarding to the photochem and class of Macalise. What are the spec that would be considered as stable reference for those documents?
I don't know.
Somebody's website somewhere, and that is the.
I don't know. Did you look at the draft and see what it says?
No, I just know that we had this in a competition, and I'm not aware of any standard body have published a spec for it, so I don't know how.
So did you look at what the draft currently references?
Sorry, not yet.
That might be the first step. Damien?
Yes, sorry, something I've neglected to say. I guess with regards to signatures, the two places that most SSH use of signatures is not super long lived. Host keys could have a lifetime of years. They're relatively hard to rotate without protocol extensions, which I should get around to writing up open SSHs. But the places where signatures are more likely to live a little bit longer are in certificate CA keys and in some of these SSH SIG signatures that get embedded into Git repositories. So they potentially have like longer lifespans than typical in protocol SSH use.
Okay. Okay, so let me try. Will I do my summarize trick again? Yeah, that's right. Okay. So the way I would summarize that is we don't really know yet, but it's something that we're going to probably keep talking about for a while. We're not forming a concrete plan to queue up all of these and then do calls for adoption. I think that's an outcome. If, for example, circumstances change and it turns out because of some regulation or because of something else that one of these things looks like it would become widely deployed, then we might do a call for adoption. But otherwise, I think I hope we're kind of not delighted, but content to kind of let these hang about for a while. Is that a bad summary? Okay, we take that as a summary. And that, with 5 minutes left, that gives us to AOB. And we had Varun, are you?
That was PQC, right? Or composite elevators.
Yeah, I'm here.
You had his slide deck up. Oh, no, it was the SSH. Yeah, well, yes, yeah. Sorry, Varun, we're just popping yourself. So again, this is the any other business part of the agenda. Varun had posted to the list to generate some discussion on some analysis work they've done. So he kindly offered to kind of give us a few minutes presentation on that. Varun, why don't you fire ahead? Do you want slide control?
Yeah, that would be nice. I prepared the talk for more than 5 minutes, but I guess I'll go quickly through the slides.
Yeah, because we have 5 minutes.
Yeah. So how do I go next? I'm sorry. Oh yeah, I have the slide control. Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
So I'll go quick. So SSH is like one of the first protocols on the internet to like undergo post-quantum migration, with OpenSSH, for example, making it default to have a hybrid key exchange. And also like Tiny SSH, for example, adding support for that even back in 2018. So it's all good. But if you look at like prior analyses of these post-quantum versions of SSH in the literature, then other works focus on the hybrid key exchange in the handshake phase in isolation. I mean, they don't want to capture the overall security of the protocol, including the application data phase. So either they only look at one part in isolation, or there are some other works which do look at the whole protocol as a whole, but then they don't pick the right model to capture security of SSH. For example, this work that was published last year by Blanche and Jacom, they use something called authenticated key exchange model for SSH, but we know from other papers that this is not the right model. So our contributions basically in our paper was that we indeed show that there's no cause for concern in the post-quantum setting. Like we do have like an end-to-end security guarantees for the hybrid SSH against quantum attackers. But again, there's like a small caveat, like when we presented this work at Real World Crypto, then the authors of Terrapin attack reached out to us saying that, oh, but you're making the same mistake as other proofs. So our analysis needs to assume a fix to the Terrapin attack. And from this WG meeting, I guess such a patch is underway. So all good on that front. Again, like I'll just describe our details at a high level. So before we provided our security proof for SSH, we started with an earlier work by Bergsma, Dowling, Kolar, Schwenk, and Stabila back in 2014, where they analyzed the classical SSH in the Diffie-Hellman setting. And they also picked a more accurate model, something they call the authenticated and confidential channel establishment model. So in our work, we basically use their analysis, and we've just extended their analysis to the hybrid setting. But along the way, we first had to extend the original AXI model to capture so-called harvest down decrypt later attacks. So and then we also captured the forward secrecy of SSH. So it's all like just providing guarantees against quantum attackers. And we also show that Terrapin attack, it's not a concern for us in the post-quantum harvest now decrypt later model. And again, as in cryptography, the way we prove security is that we rely on some underlying building blocks. So we prove that SSH is secure if we assume that the signature scheme that is used in SSH is unforgeable. The PRF that is used to derive session keys is pseudo-random, and the chem that is used is CPS secure. And then we do like a top-down approach where we, after providing a protocol level proof, we then show that the current instantiations of these primitives also satisfy these properties. For example, we show that streamline NTRU, the hybrid of MLChem and streamline NTRU prime, this MLChem and X25519, they do satisfy the CPS security notions. So just providing an end-to-end security guarantees in a post-quantum setting. And then I had some spicier takes where I said that, the current implementations use CCA chems. Can we use CP chems instead? And we generated a discussion. So that's beyond the scope of this talk. It's more like an informational one. But if you have any thoughts about the CCA versus CPA discussion, I encourage you to chime in on the mailing list. Yeah, thanks very much for your attention.
Thank you, and thank you for going super quick on a formal kind of analysis. That's the quickest formal analysis presentation I think I've been at. Thank you, Scott. We're down to like the time expired
Okay.
kind of.
Scott Fluer, does your analysis assume a post-quantum signature algorithm?
Not yet, because we are mostly focused on the harvest now decrypt later attacks. So we assume that during the handshake, we don't have a quantum relevant, cryptographically relevant quantum computer rate when the handshake happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So thanks everybody. I think we've made some reasonable progress, and hopefully we'll continue to do that on the list between now and the next time. So thank you.
See you at IETF 124 in Montreal. Thank you all.
Okay. Got enough electrons. Yeah. Cool. So we should see if we can twist Terra's arm left with that 360. Yeah. Hi. Yes. Okay, let me explain it to you. Yep. Read the draft and send comments to the list. And if that comment is what's good, that's good. If it's lots of details, that's also good. And if you hate it, you can say you hate it.
Well, you would use arguments.
Well, good to know anyway.
So you wouldn't email IETF. But it really, so we are a formal publication body. Like the documents to be the highest quality that is only possible through peer review. So for instance, where your contribution would be super valuable is if you, I don't know your familiarity with the SSHM protocol. Great, fantastic. So if you read that document as a newcomer, somebody, are you learning something, or is it only causing increased confusion? I'm not saying that you should be, but if you read the document, you feel like you could at least debug some of the failures to recognize the document. So how much effort you pour in really is up to you. And 0 is also good. You can be like, Joe, thanks for the offer, no thanks. That's fine too. But yeah, the goal is to